It's a moonless night somewhere in the Kalahari 12,000 years ago. A young woman waits inside her grass hut, listening to her husband's breathing slow into sleep. The fire outside the door has burned down to a low orange glow. She can hear a hyena calling from the riverbed a mile away. She slips out, stepping over the embers in her bare feet. 20 paces away, in the shadow of a thorn tree, another man is waiting for her. She knows him. Everyone in the camp knows him. He has been her husband's hunting partner since they were boys. They walk together into the long grass just far enough that the firelight can no longer find them. The people had a word for what was about to happen, and the word was not adultery. They called it a small marriage. Researchers who lived among them in the 1960s found that almost every adult in the camp had one. The husband may have known. The husband may have had his own small marriage on the other side of camp. The two of them would sit by the same fire in the morning, share the same roasted root, and never say a word about any of it. So, what did love, sex, and partnership really look like before priests, paperwork, and weddings? The answer is messier and stranger than anything you were taught. Let's start with whether they even fell in love. Researchers went through ethnographic records from 166 societies, hunting for any sign of romantic love, the longing, the obsession, the willingness to ruin your life for another person. They found it in 147 of them. In the rest, the records were too thin to say either way. There was not a single culture where researchers had documented an absence of romantic love. Later, scientists scanned the brains of people who had just fallen wildly in love. The deep primitive region of the brain that lights up when someone takes cocaine was firing on every single scan. Picture a hunter-gatherer man 30,000 years ago returning from a hunt and seeing a woman across the firelight. His pulse quickens, his chest tightens. For weeks he cannot stop thinking about her. That feeling is older than spoken language. So, how did our ancestors actually find each other? A few times a year, hunter-gatherer bands across southern Africa came together. 5 or 6 camps that normally lived far apart would converge at a single waterhole for 2 weeks. Picture it. Hundreds of people, skin painted with red ochre, bonfires lit at the center of a wide circle, necklaces of ostrich shell beads glinting on bare chests, women clapping in a ring while men leap and stomp in the firelight. This was the original dating app. Young men brought fresh meat to display. Young women wore the finest beadwork their grandmothers had taught them to make. A glance across the fire, a laugh that goes on a beat too long, a walk into the dark just out of sight. By morning, new marriages had begun, and the marriages themselves required almost nothing. A young man's first move was quiet. He showed up at the edge of the woman's family camp. He spent time near her fire. He brought fresh meat to her parents. He helped her younger brothers chase off baboons. If she liked him, one evening she let him into her hut and the marriage had quietly begun. Nobody performed a ceremony. The bride and groom simply built a hut together while the camp went about its day. 2 people cut grass and bent saplings into a small dome. They crawled inside together. The camp glanced at the new hut and shrugged. They were married. When they stopped sharing the hut and stopped sharing food, they were divorced. But how many people did you marry? The question is not as simple as it sounds. A large survey of human cultures from around the world found that most permitted men to have more than one wife at the same time. This is called polygyny. In northern Australia, some communities took it to an extreme. Powerful old men accumulated wives the way other men accumulated spears. A single elder could have 10 or 12 wives in a camp arranged in a half circle of huts. Children ran between them. The first wife gave orders to the second. The second gave orders to the third. Young men often had to wait until middle age before they got a first wife at all. But this was the extreme. Among many hunter-gatherer groups, only a small percentage of men had more than one wife at any time. Most ancient humans, most of the time, lived in something that looked like serial monogamy. One partner at a time, a new partner every few years, and almost all of them had a secret on the side. One woman described her marriages and her lovers with complete openness. The husband she walked away from at 19. The hunter she met behind the camp at midnight. The young man who played love songs just for her. Some communities divided their world into 2 kinds of bonds. A big marriage was the partner you lived with publicly. A small marriage was a secret long-term lover, someone you slipped away to meet whenever the opportunity came. Researchers found that most adults had at least one small marriage running at any given time. These were not one-night encounters. Small marriages could last for years. A woman might keep the same lover from her 20s into her 40s. People knew about each other's small marriages, they simply did not name them out loud. In other parts of the world, the rules were even stranger. Some Amazonian groups believed something remarkable. A baby was not made in one act. A baby was built up gradually over months of pregnancy from the contribution of every man the mother slept with. So a pregnant woman would deliberately choose 2 or 3 additional lovers during her pregnancy. A great hunter, a kind older man, a handsome relative with strong eyes. Each contribution was thought to add quality to the child. When the baby was born, the mother sat up in the longhouse with her family and lovers around her and publicly named the secondary fathers. Each of those men then stepped forward to accept his role. Each of them had a duty to bring fish and meat and protection to that child for the rest of its childhood. Researchers examined decades of birth and death records. Children with secondary fathers were significantly more likely to survive into adolescence than children with only one named father. In some ancient societies, infidelity functioned as a survival strategy that kept more children alive. This belief, called partible paternity, has been documented among multiple indigenous groups across South America. But none of this means our ancestors were free of jealousy. Researchers tracked every homicide they could verify across 2 generations in one hunter-gatherer society, roughly half traced back to sexual jealousy. A husband finding his wife with her lover, a man killing the husband of a woman he wanted for himself. Picture 2 men squaring off at dawn, the whole camp standing in a wide ring around them, spears held low. One of them lunges, the other is faster. By midday, the loser is wrapped in a skin and lowered into a shallow grave, and the woman they fought over watches from the edge of the circle without a sound. For all the openness, for all the small marriages, the human heart could still snap. But here's what made the system work most of the time. When a marriage broke beyond repair, it broke quietly. A woman packed her ostrich shell beads, her leather apron, and her digging stick into a single bag. She lifted her youngest child onto her hip. She walked miles to her sister's camp before the sun was high. It happened without courts, without lawyers, without debt collectors. The bond simply ended where it had begun, around a fire that someone else would now feed. The next gathering brought new lovers and new beginnings. And the children kept growing up surrounded by grandmothers and aunts and uncles and cousins, no matter how their parents' marriages turned out. A baby was held by an average of more than 5 different women in its first hour of life. By the time it could walk, dozens of adults had carried it, fed it, and sung it to sleep. For hundreds of thousands of years, this is how humans loved each other, messy and full of contradictions. Sometimes monogamous, sometimes not. Sometimes secret, always inside a thick circle of people who had known them since the day they were born. We inherited their hearts. We just stopped living in their circles.